What's up, guys? It's your tour guide here, and we have again our a very special guest. Um, first off, we got the books back, and Roger, can you just kind of catch everybody up on what our little project was?
Yeah, well, Otaku contacted me sometime back, and he had a couple comics that he wanted to my opinion about whether or not they would be beneficial if they could be cleaned and pressed and so forth. So we went through several different comics, and I think initially you were going to send. I told you to send two, and then because of how many you said, I said just send four. That's not a problem. That's two different presses essentially. And I know a couple of them. I know the 100 pager. You really got a great little comic there. Some of them are pretty rough. The Hulk especially was a disaster. But I love the challenge. I love to help community members. Have better their collection, better presenting their comics. Otaku, I know he bought like these low graders because he, like me, he likes to get those bargains in. So I think we have a little bit of a camaraderie when it comes to that aspect of collecting. So he sent me the four comics, and we talked offline at first, right, about them. I saw what was coming, and then it's one of those things where you online things look a little better than when you actually have three-dimensionally in front of you, right? But doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I did what I could, and you're going to see the results here in a little bit.
right. All right, so let's get this open. And I think you and I talked during the process about some of the issues that you were. I mean, they were, just things again up close that you saw as sort of challenges,
Yeah.
um, and we went over, what you were doing with it, and I was blown away by some of the some of the work that you did on particularly the Hulk, and I guess we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Um, we'll get to that, but I was blown away. I was like, no way, because I think when we went over the books virtually, you were kind of laying out the options, and I was like, oh wow, um, and I think we agreed we would avoid doing what you actually ended up doing. We
Right.
agreed we
Right.
avoided, but you
Right.
did it, and I was just like, oh my goodness,
Right.
that
We
is
initially said
just
we wouldn't do it, but the problem was that if I didn't do that, it was a greater risk of really messing up that cover than what I did initially. What I evidently I did, because it lessened the issues later on down the line. Right.
yeah, yeah.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
All right,
Now,
is there
I
a
just want to
particular?
say that we did not go, you know, crazy on this. I didn't disassemble the comics, and I didn't give him the, aqueous baths. I didn't do any of that because of the risk involved right now.
Yeah,
And I'm not like that practiced at that yet. I'm working on it. Right. So we didn't go crazy. There's definitely room for improvement here if you want to take it to another level. But
are you
certainly,
doing?
but I think what we talked about is make them more presentable, and I think
Yeah,
we accomplished that. Okay.
are you planning on doing?
Hey, no, man, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, are you planning on doing some of the more restoration techniques, like learning them and applying those?
Well, not restoration. I'm not going to like add color or pieces or anything like that. But as far as aqueous bath, cleaning, deacidification, those kind of things.
Like
Yeah, those are
removing the
things that
water
I'm
stains
I'm
and
working
stuff
on.
like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I mean that's a whole nother. That's like taking it up another notch in
Yeah,
terms of
right.
working on books. But
Right. Because the
yeah,
problem with aqueous baths and is that the paper weakens. All you've seen wet paper. I mean, literally, you can look at it; it'll fall apart on you.
yeah,
So you have to be very careful. You have to have it flat. You have to be able to dry it so that without any kind of fluctuation in the paper, etc.
yeah.
So I've worked on a few things, but I'm hopefully by the end of this year, I think I'm going to have it down pat.
Quick shout out to Jerry the Jitterbug,
Right.
who does amazing work.
Oh
Um,
man,
and he makes it look easy. Like he has
he
all the
does.
materials, and he puts it in this nice little curated video where it saves all the time involved. He
Yeah.
basically cuts, right, and it makes it seem like, oh yeah, I could do that, but
Yeah.
it's a lot more difficult
Yeah.
than it
Now Jerry
looks.
is amazing. I mean, and the thing with him is that he will figure it out. If he's not, if he'll just keep doing it. He won't give up. I mean, he'll just keep going to one process to another process, experimenting, trial and error. He won't give up. I mean, I gave him my Witchcraft 5, and that thing was, I mean, a mess. I mean, that thing was barely like even a comic, honestly. And I got back just a beautiful, beautiful conserved comic. So yeah, that's a whole nother level. I'm never going to get anywhere near that degree. I just want to have my comics better. If there's water damage or I can handle that. But when you're talking about marrying and leaf casting, that's beyond. Not never going to go there.
Well, never say never. I think it's a process, and it's can be, if you just spend enough time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true,
I think you can
true.
eventually get there, but it's one of those things that, yeah, you have to really be devoted to it, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's not something. Yeah,
All right.
and,
So
and
what?
again, the books are important too.
Yeah, yeah. All
All
right. So
right.
what's first on the docket here?
Yeah, I am gonna let you decide which one you want to go over first. So let me
Okay.
get my tab open here.
Hey,
So we
Kyle. How you doing,
have.
buddy? All right. So let's go for the 100 pager first.
Oh, okay. Going
Yeah.
right to the.
Yeah. Let's go right to the 100 pager.
All right.
Um. Okay. Once again, all of these comics, I improved them, but I'm not happy with the level of any one of them. Right. Um. The problem with this one, it had a huge wave, as you can see there by the way the light is refracting there. Huge wave, and since it's a 100 pager, to get that wave pressed out was a challenge. Right now, I did give it a general clean. On the back, there is foxing. There, there is some kind of black transfer over by where Kid Eternity is back there. Um, I lightened up the foxing a little bit. I lightened up and the back right corner, I got that pretty much off, right?
Yeah, let's
And
go
I
to that.
lightened up the foxing a bit. Yeah, that foxing on the front did not lighten very much, and I didn't want to crank it because it's right on that edge.
Yeah, and we had that expectation going in. Like the
Mhm.
the foxing wasn't something we could
Yeah, I mean
necessarily resolve.
that can be, but again, we'd have to disassemble the book, right, for
Yeah.
that. Now I'm happy with the way that the pressed out the back cover a lot better than the front cover. If you run your fingers through the Superman logo, you're still going to see a little bit of a wave on that top part.
Okay.
All right. You're probably going to feel it there. And let me tell you, I pressed the heck out of that top part. I even iron pressed it. That thing would not flatten. All right. And I didn't want to up the heat, and I didn't want to get a lot of humidity in there because you already had that foxing in there, and I was kind of worried about getting it too hot, and getting it too moist. So it's much better. It lays flatter, but it's not perfect.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have the book in front of me. Let's just
All
kind
right.
of take a look at the
Yeah. Yeah,
rest of
that
these
I
before
cleaned up pretty
photos.
well. That corner there, I think I cleaned up pretty well. Um, but the spine, I only lightened it a little bit. I don't. Yeah, see back there where the ray, that water stain, and and that black stuff that's over by uh,
Yeah, this area.
on top of Martian Manhunter. Yeah, that stuff that was rough. I mean, I worked on that for a long time, and it just lightened it a little bit.
Mhm. Okay. Well, before we get to this, let's. All right. Let's take a look at the results here.
Yeah,
What I'm going to do is
do the
gonna.
wave, says Kyle. Yeah, those 100 pagers when they're really wavy, that it's a major challenge. And that was that. I would say that thing was wavy for a good couple decades.
Okay. So here's the book,
There's the comment. Yep.
and I got it. Now that I have it in front of me, it looks completely different than the book I set in. As you can see, it is flat and smooth now.
Okay, run your
Wow.
fingers over that Superman logo, and you'll see what I mean.
It's actually very smooth. I don't see what.
Push down a little bit on it, and you're gonna
Okay.
definitely feel a wave there.
Okay, yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, I see what you
Okay.
mean.
Yeah.
That's in the book though. Like
That's
it's
in the book. Yeah,
yeah,
not the
it's in the
cover. Yeah.
book. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are probably like the interior 30 pages or so.
Wow.
I put a little bit of acid-free glue on the bottom of that spine
Oh,
because
nice.
that little part was coming apart. Um,
Right.
so that will hold together hopefully a good amount. I did, of course, after the press because the heat started melting that glue a little bit,
Hmm.
just a little bitty bit though. It didn't. I don't even think you could notice any difference down there.
It looks great.
Yeah,
Wow.
I love the color strike on that book. It is so nice. I mean, just so cool.
All right, let's take a look at the back now.
Hmm. That you if you put your finger, that came out pretty flat. That back part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
You
is
see how that
out.
cleaned up? That corner cleaned up pretty well.
It did.
Yeah.
Amazing. Wow, it great job.
Yeah, I like the back cover better. I think I did a better job pressing. I don't know why that front part just will not. I could not get rid of that wave no matter what I did.
So let's take a look here. I don't know. So it was very wavy, and now it just looks
Yep.
so much better now.
Yeah, the back part is pretty flat. I'd say I'm
And
pretty
you
happy with that back part.
and
Yeah.
you got a lot. Again, it was looking. It had a good amount of dinge in these areas
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Aside from this like water stain here,
Yeah.
but it's so clean now. I mean, look
Yeah.
at this area here.
Yeah. 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 It's clean. I
Wow.
mean, there are some things which are again in the fibers that again I didn't want to crank too much because it will remove color even with the safe stuff that I use
Hmm.
because of the pressure that you put on it. But I kind of went like we talked about. I went to the part where I was comfortable. I knew I wouldn't wreck it,
Yeah.
and it would come out much more presentable.
Wow.
And the spine is rock solid, squared, no problems there.
It looks beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks much better. It looks much better. I wish I
All
could have
right.
gotten that wavy part out of the front, but again, I didn't want to crank on it anymore because of I was afraid of crushing that spine.
Wonderful.
Wavy gravy.
Wonderful.
Do not take the brown acid. Kyle. Hey Kenneth, how you doing? Kenneth, you
Oh, we
are
got some
everywhere,
people
my friend.
here.
Wow.
What's up, Kyle? Thanks for dropping in.
Kyle may be sending me some comics sometime. I don't know. He's contemplating it.
Kenneth, what's up? All right, so we're going to go to another book here. And I'm just going to bring up my page again. All right, so which one should we go to next?
Let's leave the Hulk for last.
Okay.
Let's go to the Iron Man.
Iron Man. All right.
Now this one was not in terrible shape. First of all,
Okay.
The main problems here was just it had some creasing. It had a few minor dents, indentations. The back has a little bit of foxing, as you'll see. There was a lot of dirt on the corner box area. Dirt or transfer. I think it was more transfer than dirt. I think a little bit of both, but it was more transfer than dirt on the top left.
Mm-hmm.
The spine was pretty good. Had a little bit looseness on the top staple, I do believe,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing major. Nothing that the press would wreck or anything. Yeah, had a lot of those little corner creases. It had some general dirt, but not really that bad, honestly, Otaku. Yeah,
And this was a black cover. Yeah, this was a black cover. So, I mean, it's like,
yeah,
it had all these little creases. So it's
everything
not like,
shows. Yeah,
it's
everything
not
shows.
like we could do much there. So,
yeah, I mean,
really, what my hope on this one was just to kind of clean it up a little bit, and then just get it looking as flat as possible. Because there were some like edge areas that would just look better with a press after a press. So
it had a little bit of a curl there on the spine. I mean, just a little bit, you know.
true.
And that I think that flattened okay. If you can show the top corner box, that's the part that was really kind of nasty. I don't know if you took a picture of it. There it is. Yeah,
Here it is.
See that kind of between his arm and his right boot there.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's more transfer than anything else, though. Yeah, I had a heck of a time with that stuff.
All right, so we're gonna take a look at the results now.
Okay. Yeah, ink schmear. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's what it is. All right. I think it was probably stored, you know, one cover to another, and just for years it just kind of melded together.
There we go. Oh yeah. All right. Okay. Oh yeah. All right. Good. Here we go. Gonna just make this big here.
I like the fact that you have this 2-camera setup. This is cool.
Okay, so yeah, here we go. As you can see, it is flat and smooth now. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came out pretty well.
It looks really good. And you can see the spine Roger was referring to. There was a bit of like a curl to it, like this coming up like this.
Right.
And that looks a lot
pretty
better
much
now.
gone. Yeah, it's pretty much gone. I think there's maybe a slight, but not much. And that corner box is much better. It's not perfect. There's still there some, but again, I didn't want to crank on it and get rid of the color.
No. Yeah. And really, I'm just going to kind of put my finger along here. That feels a lot better than before. So, yeah, much better.
Yeah, it wasn't chippy exactly. It was just ragged.
Mm-hmm.
So
any issues on the back or anything?
Yeah, you're going to see some foxing or something back there.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's a
lightened
lot
that a
better.
bit, yeah,
Yeah,
but
looks much better.
not too bad. I mean, just general cleaning, I think, is all I did on there. I don't think there was anything, just use a soft tip eraser, a little bit of absorbing on the corners, and those foxing or whatever it is,
Hmm.
and then just rub it with a pad to get the any kind of residue,
Hmm.
and that's pretty much it. And then just give it I gave it a good couple 2-3 minutes of humidity
Hmm.
to see if that, because the back, just to make sure that that back was straightened out a bit, but I think it came out pretty well.
It came out great. Look at
Hey,
that.
Owl Nimbus, cool. Yeah,
All
it is
right.
tough to keep yeah, it is tough to keep the black ones in good shape. Yeah.
Loving that. Loving that. Okay.
Yeah, you see what I'm talking about? That we improved that, like, maybe a half a grade to a grade at most, right? But the presentation, though, was improved, I think, to a much better degree.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to go now. We're counting down. We got two more left.
Right. Superman next.
Yeah, let's go to the Superman.
I really like that comic, by the way. I read it and everything.
So yeah, your thoughts on this one? Because this one actually had a lot of issues,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah,
were confident that at the end of this, this one would probably get the most
yeah,
improvement or upgrade, I guess.
yeah. I was a bit worried because there were the creases were so deep. In other words, that you could almost fold that over in half. The creases were so deep. So that means the paper was very weak. So when you're cleaning it, you have to be careful about how much pressure you're putting on any spot that that crease intersects, right?
Yep.
And then there was some goo or something on the top, and this is one that I did damage it, but it couldn't be helped, honestly. I didn't know it was there. It was some kind of, I don't know what it was, super glue or nail polish or something that was transparent.
Hmm.
And I felt something there, but I barely started cleaning it, and it just come right off. I'll show you. It's just a very small. Hey, Bill, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, Bill?
But I
So
think it
yeah,
presents
it was
much
in
better.
this area here you're referring to, right? That area there.
I'm not seeing anything with talking.
Oh, are you not? Oops, sorry.
No worries, no worries. Hey, Misky, how you doing, buddy? Well, I haven't seen you in a while.
All right,
Cool.
so here's the book. I'm gonna go back.
Yeah,
There it
yeah,
is.
really heavy creasing. Yeah,
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 yeah, deep creasing,
yeah.
like somebody had, like it was sitting in the crease for just a very long
Long
time,
time.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and because of that, the paper separates slightly,
yep,
and that weakens that spot because there's less paper in the groove.
yep,
It was kind of dirty too, because it's white, mostly white. 60s comic. Obviously, it's been around, so it was kind of dirty. It had that up there by the Z and Amazing. It is where the
yep,
issue was. It had a couple
right.
foreign bodies up there,
So yeah, up near the amazing.
and the back cover had was kind of dirty. It has a You see that in the middle there. It looks like there at some point that had been rubbed or something. It's discolored, dirty around the edges. It had some distributor ink or something on the top little red spot up there.
Hmm.
I really like the back cover the way that came out. Probably that's my best work on that back cover. I worked a long time on that back cover, and it came out pretty good.
All right, we're gonna take a look now, and I have the book in front of me, and I've got to say, well, aside from the you know basically the creases that run all the way through the book.
Right.
Aside from that distinguishing factor, it does not look like the book I sent you. It's like transformed so much
It really
like
benefited
in
from a
terms
press
of
and
improve.
clean. That one did,
I
yeah, it sure
know,
did.
right? It
It sure did.
just,
Yeah.
I mean, it looks amazing.
I mean, like I
I
said, I'm
mean,
not totally happy with that little part that got that that part of the Z that came out, but
yeah.
overall, I think this comic presents darn good compared to what well, how it was.
All right. Well, I'm gonna make before. There we go. Here we go. All right. So just, I mean, just looking at it like from sort of this perspective, just the whole book,
Hmm.
like you don't see the creases anymore. Like it was so apparent. Those
Right,
like it was like that. It was like so apparent.
right.
Like the deep creasing here, all along here, like you could just see it. It was just like an
Yeah,
like it's sticking out like an eyesore.
right.
But look at that!
Right. Well, what happens, and I think I mentioned this, right, is when
Wow.
you humidify it, the fibers sort of loosen and sort of like a fissure closing up a bit, right?
Hmm.
And then you press that, and it actually presses those little bitty bits into those fissures, and so it looks better if on the non-color breaking parts, especially. Um, but but that came out pretty well. Pretty good gloss compared considering.
Yeah.
And I think it came out. I think that one came out pretty flat. I think there's a little bit of a wave, like if you look at it from the top down. But yeah, I kind of like the way this came out, and the whites came out pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it looks like if you were to just look at this half of the book, I mean, you could just make an argument it's high grade just on the this
right.
half where
Just on
the
that part.
creasing
Yeah,
isn't right.
yeah,
And then even though, but the whole book overall just looks great. I mean, you know what I mean. It doesn't come across as I mean, it's obviously a lower grade book, but it,
right.
it, it comes off as like a mid grade copy for sure.
Yeah, it looks a lot better. I mean, you can
And,
display that and not be like totally embarrassed,
exactly, exactly.
I also think that I reinforced one of the staples. I think it wasn't off, it was just loose. So I just made sure to tighten it a little bit. So just be
Nice.
careful when you read it, treat it gingerly.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna look at the back, and I know the back looks a lot better.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. That does almost, if it wasn't for the discoloration in the middle, that would be like a mid-grade book right back there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I worked a lot on that back cover because it was working, you know what I mean? When things are working out, you get inspired, so I just kept going and going and going.
Look at how clean that is now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That came out pretty darn well. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that back cover. Yeah, Bill, a few hundred. No, I don't have time for that. If you want to send me 4 comics, fine. But a few hundred, no, I don't. You know,
Yeah, I
I
hope
I
I
do I
don't.
do
I
have
didn't
work to
open up.
do here.
I hope I didn't open up some like
No,
a.
no, that's just Bill. He's always hitting me with something or other. Yeah, I like that, and it pressed pretty square too, which is impressive. Um, Considering
Wow.
the age of the comic and how it's a thicker comic,
Yeah,
it pressed pretty square. So
and this is just you know, irregardless of the grade, and that's one thing I'm realizing now is like when I get one of these books, um, obviously if it's of a grade that's really where you can't really tell if it's in bad shape.
Hmm.
Um, it's something I probably wouldn't feel that great about. But for a book like this, where it's just in low grade, everything kind of still looks good. The cover looks great. Um, when I got this book, I was just it became like one of my favorites in the collection.
Cool.
And the fact that it was aged and read and like that didn't matter to me. Like
Cool.
the condition of the book really didn't matter to me. So I was really pleased with just having the book in my collection. It's a beautiful Neil Adams piece,
Yeah. Great.
and
Iconic cover. I mean,
iconic,
everybody knows
right?
that cover, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And but to have it improve like this, just it's such a great feeling. Um,
I'm glad you
it's
like it,
like,
buddy. Glad.
yeah, it's like it's got renewed life and like,
Yeah.
just it's because you want things that you treasure or cherish. If you can get them looking just a little better or just a little presenting a little better,
Right.
it's completely worth it. And so, thank you
Agreed.
so
Agreed.
much.
Oh yeah,
Thank you
sure.
so
My,
much for
my
this.
pleasure. I had a blast working on this stuff. I mean, to me, to work on comics like this, it's like it's fun for me. It's not like a chore. It's not anything like that. I mean, I was when I was working through it, I was like, oh, when things are working good, right? When things are flowing, and my theories are proving out, great. And then that little chip at the top that derailed me for about a day. Um, but yeah, I really liked the improvement on that one. I thought you'd be pleased.
I'm very pleased. Very,
Hey
very
Brian, how you doing,
pleased.
buddy?
What's up, Brian? Enjoyed
All
your
right,
breakfast show this
so
morning?
yeah, I didn't catch it this morning. I was talking to my mother. All right, the
All right, this is the
last one
this
is
is the
the
big
Hulk.
one, and this is the
Oof.
one that we were talking about earlier, um, where I was really amazed when you told me that an issue had been resolved, and I was just like, wow.
Well, let me. This one was. I, I have some pretty bad looking comics in my collection. Okay, I mean, I've had some of my comics for 45 years. And when I was a little kid, I had them in a shoebox with toys and who knows, all kinds of debris in there. So I have some pretty rough comics. But I think this Hulk is rougher than any comic in my collection, or was. Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But
Yep. It was it was in very rough shape. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, I'll just let you talk through what the issues
Okay.
were.
So, um, okay, there are many issues, but the ones that are problematic as far as trying to get this to look in a better state is that the comic, specifically the covers, had gone through some kind of humidity or some kind of something that made them very ragged. It was almost like thick tissue paper. And there was a big rip about a third of the way on the right edge. And then they had whoever put tape there, they put tape, and then you see the rip was almost like a cross there, right? So
Yeah.
there was one tape there, and then there was a little piece over this way. So what happened is that I tested another comic that I put tape on. It was just a old beat up comic, and what would happen is that the glue of that tape, when it's put under pressure and heat, it started bubbling and started there's caterpillar action that comes out of it, right? And it, I was thinking, well, if it comes out, it could actually go down into the paper, and it could actually seal or press the paper, and it would rip it if you try to open the comic, right? So I said, I got to get rid of that tape. There's a lot of chipping, as you see down there, chunks down at the bottom, very dirty, weak paper. The bottom staple was popped, totally popped out, right? Um, Now on the inside cover is also has sellotape. All right. I didn't remove that because the paper is so weak that if I remove that, I was afraid it would just rip that whole piece off. Even though I had Bestine and it does loosen that glue up pretty well, right? But that paper was really raggedy weak. So what I did is I put the Bestine on there, and I just started moving it with my finger, not my fingernail, just my finger. Okay. And I said, if it moves, it comes off. If it doesn't, well, I'm going to say, Taku, forget it, right? So I just started moving it, and like the first 5, 6 times, nothing. I mean, that thing wouldn't budge, you know? That thing's been on there for a long time. That's all I can say. I put a little bit more, and I guess a little bit got under there, and I saw a little bit of a curl, and it probably like half an hour, just little bitty bits. You check it, you curl. I have a little tool, little plastic tool. I said, if there's any little bit of white on there, that's it. You know, I'm stopping. But no, that little by little, very patient. And then the horizontal one, and then the vertical one, the same thing. Just half an hour, it all came off, no problem. Deposition. So yeah, this one had a lot of issues, but the big issue was that the covers were very weak. The paper, it's thin and just weak, and that is a bad combination, because when you're cleaning, you have to put some kind of pressure on there. So I have these clamps. I clamp them, and then of course I hold down around the area I'm cleaning, whether it's by an eraser or by absorbing or by a pad. And you just got to go very slow and just put minimal pressure and up the pressure a little bit when you feel. That's why I don't wear gloves, because you sort of feel the paper buckling a little bit, and when that happens, you got to ramp down, you know. So this was a challenge. I probably worked on this comic almost as much as the other 3 combined, because it was in rough shape. Let's put it that way. That cover was no picnic either, you know.
Well, I'm looking at it now, and it looks incredible. Now,
I wouldn't go that
again,
far. It looks
well, yeah,
presentable.
it
It
looks
doesn't look incredible.
compared to what it was. It looks a lot better. I mean, obviously the chipping, you know, that just that sticks out.
The bottom part especially, yeah.
But like, assuming that chipping wasn't there, I mean, it's a great looking book. It's a great looking book.
Now,
And it wasn't looking that it wasn't a great looking book when I sent it to you, for sure.
no,
It was
no.
not.
Now, let me tell you, we'll
Oh,
talk
back
before
this
you
way.
try opening it. That bottom staple, if you'll notice, there's just a little, I mean, a millimeter of cover on that staple. So when you open it, press that together when you open it, and don't open it more than what your thumb is on there,
Yeah,
because
I'm not gonna open it right now, so
because
hopefully I'm just
it is just there was only a tiny little piece of that cover that I could slip under that staple. And it worked. It even survived, you know, when I flipped through it, it survived it, but it's precarious. So
yeah.
be very careful. That's all I'm saying.
All right, well, here we go. We're gonna take a look now.
Yes, that's the first Rocket Raccoon in comics. He did appear as Rocky Raccoon in Marvel Preview.
All right, so there's the book, and again,
Yeah.
it just looks cleaner. It's smooth. Um, Again, if it weren't for the chipping, you know, it would just
Yeah.
you could, and the tear, obviously, but you could make an argument that it would be mid grade. But yeah, like without the tape, it looks so much cleaner and better. I mean, like when you get in close, you can see,
That
the crease,
residue. Yeah.
the tear
Yeah.
and everything. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And
yeah, I mean,
I think that tape being on there so long, it probably was, it's not acid free. So if you see there's a little discoloration or something,
that's fine. Yeah.
you know, it's not that noticeable though, I think, but yeah, it had a lot of not waviness, but it had a lot of like these little indentations everywhere.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and of course the pressing will took those out right away. I had to
Yeah.
press that thing 3 times, by the way.
Wow.
Um, Again, the spine is very ragged. You see that bottom staple there? You see
Yeah.
how it's like there's a little slip of paper on there. That's it. I mean, barely anything on there.
Try to get that staple in focus there.
Yeah, there it is. See how it's barely
Yeah.
like see that little overlap? You can see the rib there. That's it. That's all it's holding it on there. And believe me, and I had to manipulate the paper to get that much. So
Get
the
that.
whites were a challenge because again it was the dirt, and this was dirt, was pretty ground in there.
Hmm.
Some of it, I didn't want to chance chipping it anymore on the edges, so the edges are a little bit dirtier than the interior, but that was sort of a cost benefit analysis on my part.
Wow. Yeah, I mentioned it when we had this discussion. Again, when I learned that you had removed the tape, I was so ecstatic, and I think I called. I said you were a surgeon because I didn't think it could be done. The
Yeah,
fact that you
it could
got it off
yeah.
without any damage to the surface of the book,
No,
that's just incredible.
no. You just have to be very patient, go very slow, because when a tape is on that long, two things can happen. It can actually loosen, which is good, or it can actually just essentially by osmosis become part of the cover. But it thank God that whatever glue that is, the Bestine got it after a few applications.
Yeah, and just gonna kind of show the back of the book again.
Yeah,
The back looks really
the back
nice.
looks pretty good. Yeah, yeah. The back cover was pretty dirty, but it wasn't nearly as the 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 quality of the paper was much better on the back than the front. So that tells me that something happened to that front cover for who knows how long to weaken it like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah, I wish the
don't.
back cover was the front cover. That would have been,
Don't we?
that would have
Don't
been
we
really
wish?
good.
You don't typically see chipping in a bronze. I mean, you
No,
can, but you,
no,
you typically don't see it.
yeah.
What causes a book, I guess, just being in just overly dry and
Yeah. That is not typical Marvel chipping. Like in the 60s, yeah, when that paper, it got a lot of acid, it got brittle, and because it's on the edges, it has less support, so it would
Mhm.
chip off. That's why I call it chipping, right?
Gotcha.
But that there, it's not that chipping because there would be it would have a different color and a different like feel to it, like brittleness. This is more like a raggedy cover. So it looks to me like that was either like that front cover was put in such a way that it was overhanging, in other words, and some kind of pressure kept going on it. Who knows what it was? It could have been anything from even just like plastic. You know, Eventually that rubbing up against it so much that it causes those little divots up there, and that especially on the bottom. Those are really big.
Hmm.
Um, because I have that same comic and I checked my cover just to make sure, and the texture is it's different. So something happened that transformed that cover and made it so that it more raggedy. I mean, I don't know. That's probably not a good technical way of putting it, but that's the only thing, the only way I can describe it.
Well, uh, I am just super thankful for all the hard work you put into these, and man, do they look a whole lot better. Just gonna kind of show them again.
I'm really happy you like them because that's my goal, really. That just to have them more presentable. I mean, you have your display case up there. Um, I like the fact that you when you bought these, you're like, hey, I'm buying these, and they're not perfect, but they're mine.
Yeah,
Um,
I almost prefer to. Obviously, if you can get high grade of something, that's ideal, right? That's
yeah,
ideal. But you got to think about like the cost performance of, if I could get $100 book for $1, but it isn't in great condition, I'll take it for $1 because at least you
sure,
you got it. And even if it presents like this, like it's a subjective thing in terms of its appeal, right? Like I
right,
still think this looks just as good as a high grade copy in terms of what its value is. Obviously, the hobby views it differently, but um,
yeah, of
yeah,
course.
I
I mean,
mean,
yeah, there's a whole segment of the hobby which, if it's not high grade, that it doesn't
yeah,
exist, right? But
yeah,
yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah, Bill. And Kyle's right. I mean, environmental things, but the problem that I have is that it's really the front cover. So beyond environmental, there was something else, or it could be environmental. I guess that somehow the back was covered, I suppose, but that front cover was definitely something happened to it. You know that 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 was more than the normal kind of wear and tear.
yeah.
It wasn't from reading it. That's what I'm saying.
I'm telling you, it was the tape was an eyesore, and now the eyesore is gone. So I mean, that's
It's
that's
much
what's
better.
most,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's much
that's
better.
what's
Much better.
that's what's important.
It's much better. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. And the pressing, the when I humidified that book, that raggedy cover really got ragged. So when I put it in my humidity chamber, normally I would pick it up with my hands. That one, I actually got like a cardboard and moved it into onto my preparation table with that cardboard because I was afraid if I would pick it up with the because I put it with the cover down so that gets the more humidity. I was afraid I was going to put that thing was just going to fold up on me. I mean, the cover would just split up because it's so weak, that front cover. Um, but no, it all worked out, thank God.
Al Nimbus, you hit it right on the head. The differences are night and day.
Well,
Thank you
I'd
so
say it's
much.
like I would say it's like night and like early morning, but but thank you for that comparison. Um,
Wow.
definitely you have much improved comics there, Otaku. That was my goal, really. I mean, my talents are limited, but I was fairly confident when we talked that I could help you out at least, half a grade, a grade bump, and I think
Yeah.
I think we accomplished that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, um, anybody who looks at these books will definitely. I mean, I'll post the after photos and try to put the before and after side by side and then post them. But yeah, I mean, anybody who looks at those will understand um, the
Thanks, Nam man. Thank you,
improvements.
buddy.
Yeah. So just gonna go over the comments here. This was fun project to observe, and I suspect both of you. We did.
Yeah.
I can't speak for Roger because he did all the work. But you know, this was like 2 weeks ago. We kind of just initiated this,
Yeah.
and now that I mean, in a 2 week span, I got to tell you, when I submit books to CGC and I get them back, I don't feel the. I mean, it's a great feeling to get graded books back, but this 2 week circle, I was just like so excited all for these past 2 weeks, just knowing that these books were going to come back, that they were going to be improved, and that just the whole process of Roger spending taking his time and really doing this for me. Just that whole circle of um, endeavor from start to finish. And now that they're here, I'm telling you, it's there's no better feeling. Um, I mean, if we could do this like all the time, it'd be great. But I just
Right.
think like just doing, and that's the thing. I think I'm gonna now have some, uh, be particular about what I pick up,
Mhm.
and also have that in mind. Like, can this be improved with it, like a good clean and a press? Is this worth getting? Because I know that's how you're approaching probably
Yep.
looking at books that you pick up, right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a
Exactly.
lot of people can get good deals, especially on some of the wrinkled ones and maybe
Yep.
the minor dirt and stuff. So this
Yeah. I
is
mean,
great.
as long as the book, the comic is not brittle, I that can be that can be corrected. Don't get me wrong, but now we're talking about disassembly. We're talking about uh, different methods to deacidify and to have an aqueous bath so that you have to soak the. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort to put into it. You know. So yeah, if I had some kind of like action one or something, or not even one, but let's say an action 20 or something, yeah, it'd be worth it. But that's a lot of work. You're talking about days and days and days between when you start the process and you end the process, and you have to be. It's very fiddly work. Any little problem when paper gets wet is problematic. I mean, it'll rip, it'll tear, it could get mold. I mean, there's all series of issues that can come up, right? But you're right. But when I go now, I'm going to next weekend. I'm going to a convention with Mike Night Tiger. Right, he's the one who gave me this press, so he's the one who started this whole journey of mine. Right, and I see when I see a comic and it's like $2 and it's got a spine roll and it's got creasing and it's got dirt, or it's got some ink on the white. I'm like, no problem, you know, no problem whatsoever. That's an hour of work, you know.
Yeah.
So
No, I think when you were mentioning the ASM that you picked up, the Death of Gwen Stacy,
right,
and the Death of Green Goblin,
right,
the
121, 122, yeah,
those two issues, and looking at those books, and when you told me like what the issues were before you did the work on them, I was just like, wow, that's impressive. And to get like big books like that, and then just kind of rejuvenate, right? Rejuvenate
right,
those two books, because you're right. They probably, not too many collectors are going out and,
no,
vying for the,
no,
the low grade stuff.
no.
But
Those things were not quite as bad as your Hulk, as far as didn't have tape, things like that, but um, very creased, very dirty, very spine rolled. Cover was off on both staples on the 121, I think. But it wasn't. That's funny, right? Because every comic you don't know what happened is that the it didn't split through the spine or anything like that. Actually, the staples moved up like that, so it slipped out of there. You know,
wow. Yeah.
Um,
Quick fix.
yeah, and the bottom one didn't have a staple, so who knows what happened to that? It got lost somewhere along the line. Um, there was a little bit of the bottom one. You can tell it kind of ripped through it, but it wasn't. I could ratchet it because there was a lot of there. The whole part was there where the staple is on the cover. That the little bridge part was there. It's just that it was just big rip there, but it was all there. So you could just ratchet down the staple on it, and it holds fine. Unlike the Hulk you had, which only had like a little bitty bit. Staple placement has a lot to do with that. But honestly, if you see a low grade comic, you have to look at it from that perspective. Now that you're thinking of getting a press yourself, right? So you know you can save a lot of money if you just want to have a comic that's presentable by buying a low grader that nobody else wants, and usually you get even a better deal on that because the dealer's like, how am I going to get rid of this thing? So yeah, you can save a lot of money,
Yeah.
even on
There,
those keys if they're really low grade.
yeah. That's a great thing. I think about this new aspect of the hobby is because in years past, everybody went through the bargain bin and dug out the readers' copies of like key books and stuff, and those weren't worth much, right? Um, but to get a reader's copy and then do some of this work to make it present more presentable, almost give it new life to a certain extent. That that is just a cool aspect of the hobby. Aside from just buying books and enjoying these things,
Mhm.
the work. This is why I think like if people eventually get to where like they're doing restoration like Jerry does, right? If you get to
Right.
that passion point of the hobby, that is just that's a lifelong journey, right? Um, and
Sure.
and that's another aspect of the hobby uh, that it's kind of like because you're saving the books at that point. You're
Mhm.
saving these like pieces of history. Because yeah, some of those golden books, the golden age books, right? Uh, those are like museum pieces that he's working on, and
Yeah.
to see them like kind of what they look like when they came off the press or they were like that kind of work is like I can only imagine it'd be just really gratifying, right?
Yeah. Has to
And
be.
yeah,
Has to
and what you're doing right now to some extent is a little bit of that. It's really gratifying to like again save books. That's what you're doing essentially. This process is like you're saving the books and making them just look better and for however many generations down the road that'll get to enjoy
be.
um, the book. But yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I look at it very similarly. Like I said, my collection, a lot of it is not in great shape. I mean, when I was a kid collecting in 1974, 75, I was 12 years old or whatever, and you, you never thought of a comic as anything like a collectible. It never entered in my mind, right? That it, I had a Hulk 181 from back then, and I cut out the value stamp. It was, it had a major spine roll. It had as I remember, it had a huge tear in the back cover, because it was one of the first comics I bought. I stuck it in a shoebox. Long story, but that a friend of the family he said he wanted to borrow some of my comics, some of my X-Men, and because he was a Wolverine guy, those Hulks, he took it. He denied that he ever took it because I didn't, it was just he and I. So I lost those comics. Many years later, I found a minty Hulk 180 and 181 in a comic convention. So
Wow.
those came back to me. I still have those, thank God. But a lot of my collection is, in that really raggedy shape. And, some of them probably are worth not much. I mean, you could upgrade them maybe for a couple dollars or whatever. But to me, I have a special kind of nostalgia to the ones that I bought when I was a kid. So now I can sort of bring them back to the condition or close to the condition when I was a kid, and it adds another level to that nostalgia.
Yeah. Is
Um,
the 181 right behind you? I see
no,
a Hulk back there.
no, it's over here in a. I have a
Box.
container with some. Yeah, I'll show it some other time. What is that? I have a Spider-Man 129 though up there.
Nice.
That was given
Nice.
to me by the boy who had 7, and that kind of reminded me of your Superman actually, because it had this huge crease down the middle and other little creases. And maybe about a month ago, I actually cleaned that up, pressed it, and it is flat as a board now. But just to get back to my original point, I don't want to belabor this too long. If you or anybody out there is considering this, right, it's not rocket science. First of all, it's really not that hard. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I have no special talents when it comes to preservation, chemicals, heat, geology, none of that. All right. All I have is years of knowing comics and knowing, pretty much the parameters of what they can put up with, right? That I have, but with the information that you have on YouTube and the community members, I talk to Jerry the Jitterbug. I talk to Mike. Collecting Chaos is a really good site for cleaning comics. I didn't invent any of this. I learned from people who came before me and just applied it, And there's trial and error. Every little thing is different. Every press is different. Every comic has different issues with it that you have to be careful about. But after you start pressing for a couple of months, cleaning and pressing, it's almost like instinctual. You'll know by looking at a comic, feeling it, what you have to do to it. And again, when I work, I have a lunch break. I'm going to work on a comic, not while I'm eating, but I wash my hands and then I work on a comic and then I go back to work. And it's sort of like something to look forward to, to me. So Taku, if you have the chance, go for it. It's fun, it's rewarding, and you would be amazed what you can do with your collection if you start cleaning and pressing just at a basic level.
Yeah, it's something I'm definitely gonna do. I'm definitely gonna do it. It's just when is sort of the question. But I look at it as like I have all the, I have all the kind of time in terms of my retirement to enjoy this process. So I'm not gonna try to
Right.
rush into it. Um, I did want to ask you your thoughts on, um, for example, if you have let's say you had a golden age book
Mm-hmm.
and it's just deteriorating from age. There's just no other way to, it's pulp and
Yeah.
it degrades, and
Correct.
over time it's just going to get worse and worse. But let's say you have a book, really bad shape. It's chipping. It just looks bad. It's it you know it's a low grade book.
Okay.
Maybe some tearing, maybe some chipping, but overall, it still presents somewhat well.
Mm-hmm.
Would you keep it as is, or would you want to restore it and do all the sort of the color, the color recoloring, leaf casting, and doing all the sort of it's going to get the restored label if you ever got it graded, but
Right.
just to get it to looking like, is it that important for you? Because I have my own thoughts on this, but I'm just wondering how you would approach that situation.
I mean, as far as when you're talking about color touching and things like that, that would be a special situation where I would go to that route. First of all, because I have no idea how to do that right now, right? I mean, not obviously you can learn, right? But I have no idea how to do that right now. And more likely than not, I would mess things up, right? Oh, Reggie has a cleaning kit. Okay, cool. So probably I would not go the color touching route. Now, now the leaf casting, I already told you, that's a little beyond me right now, but like you said, never say never, right? It could be. But what you can do to that comic, even without leaf casting and without color touch, is that if it is chipped and if it's brittle, you can deacidify it in an aqueous bath. So that can be done. But again, you're talking about, you probably have to put page by page, you know. Uh, I don't know because I've never done it, with a Golden Age comic, so I can't know exactly, right? But based on what I've seen in Jerry, you have to be careful. I mean, give that bath. You have to make sure you could dry it and flatten it, because if you don't flatten it while it's drying, it'll wrinkle up. There's a lot of moving parts there, right?
Yeah.
So I would, to answer your question, I probably would not color touch. Leaf casting is a maybe, but deacidification of a brittle comic, of a chipping comic, that is where I would go, to make sure that the integrity of the comic is going to be improved, because that way at least you know that it's not going to degrade any further, except many years down the line, past my lifetime, and then assemble it. And if the covers are detached or from each other, then you're talking about leaf casting, putting some kind of reinforcement like Tengojo papers, things like that, rice paper. Definitely would go there, but color touching, probably not.
Okay.
The only thing I can think of that when that would happen is if there is some kind of just incredible discoloration that's just glaring, that really just ruins the presentation of the book altogether. But I would say a 99.9 no.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these things, I asked that because I do have like a beautiful Golden Age book that looks great. That looks
Mhm.
great, but I'm I was always thinking in the back of my mind, this I wouldn't mind getting it restored, just because it deserves. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things that deserves to be looking its best. You know,
What is it? What comic is it?
it's a Wallywood Weird Science number 10, I believe. Let
Okay.
me get it. I have it
An
right here.
EC. Okay. Ah, yeah, classic stuff. Yeah,
I mean, it's a beautiful book.
yeah,
It's a
classic,
beautiful
classic.
book.
Yeah.
And it's just, if I leave it as is, I mean, yeah, I mean, if I just keep it kind of covered and don't open it up and just leave it as is, it's going to kind of stay this way for a long time. Um, but it is so brittle, so fragile. Like,
Mm,
it's one of those things you just don't even want to like
yeah.
expose it to anything, because it's just. But I would love to see this book kind of like restored and vibrant, without the chipping and all the little uh, sort of tape pulls or whatever there on the corner and stuff. If I could just get that, all that, if I could get this looking like a new book, I would. I definitely would. It's just I don't have the know-how to do it, but
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah, that
wondering what people thought about that.
yeah, something like that, if it's that brittle, then it's probably smart just to keep it like that until you can get some kind of deacidification on it. Because what happens there is that when it's that brittle, honestly, even opening it, you could just chip parts of it off. Um,
Exactly.
So what you have to do there is whoever will handle that will have to actually somehow humidify it or do some kind of process to actually take it apart without further chipping.
Yeah.
You know, if you chip the interior, right, where there's no graphics, that's not a big deal. That you can leaf cast that and all that. But if you start chipping the cover and and anything where there's graphics on, then that's when it's a problematic.
You can see
You
a
know,
big chunk chipped off
right
there.
there, yeah,
There's chipping at the bottom. There's just
yeah,
chipping like this bottom corner. Just
yeah,
it's a perfect triangle chip. It's just chipped. It like full. There was a crease, and then that crease just chipped
yep,
off,
just chipped right off. Yeah, that's
like it was a
yeah,
knife cut.
yeah. Like I said, the edges, since they're weaker, um, you know, you can look at them wrong and they'll chip off. I mean,
Yeah,
I have a Golden Age comic that's I think similar to that.
yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit better integrity, but man, those yeah, if I have to get I have to put a if I just use my finger it'll chip, but if I put like a little spatula, I have a little like a pie spatula which I'll put in there, and that's the only way I can open it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1800s brutalness. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. The older the paper gets, I mean, depending on on what the paper is, you know, it's going to degrade because pulp is going to essentially, uh, it's not made for long term storage or anything like that. I mean, most pulp was, you know, for a read or two, and then you know, boom, you know. So yeah, the acidity of the paper eventually will make it, you know, so either brittle or it'll just um you know, just the colors will fade. I mean, all kinds of stuff can happen when the acid in the paper is released, which it will eventually.
yeah,
You can slow it down, but it always is going to happen.
yeah. I think restoration is not a bad thing um, if it's being done in a situation where you're rescuing the book, and
Right.
it's a book that needs to be rescued. So, I guess with those caveats, I don't mind that process. Like,
Right.
this is a book I would want looking in its complete, like, just to look, have it look like brand new again, like
Yeah.
resuscitated. Would I mean, it looks great now. Don't get me wrong. It's a book I definitely treasure as well, but um, it's one of those things where if I could restore it and have the assurance that it would come back looking, brand new, I would definitely jump on that. But
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
see. Yeah,
There are, you know, it's expensive, but there are professional restorers
yeah.
that will restore your comic. I don't know if it's worth it for that particular comic, but
Is it expensive? Like,
yeah,
what's the general
it's expensive.
service charges
It's
for those kinds of things?
it's pretty expensive. I mean, unless your comic is worth at least a few thousand, it's not worth it. You know, but they do incredible work. I mean, they'll
Yeah,
take that comic and you won't recognize it. It'll
yeah,
look like it just came off the newsstand. I mean,
yeah,
it's amazing. Of course, they have a whole area that's just for that. I mean, it's amazing, right? I mean, I read an article long ago on it. I think her name was Susan Siccioni, and she had like this setup you wouldn't believe. I mean, this thing was like the comic comes in and essentially it just floats there, and all. I mean, it's just amazing. And she
wow,
has like these not microscopes, but these enhancements, you know, where she can see every little detail,
yeah,
and she will actually, you know, add paper to it, and has the same kind of ink color, how she matches it. It's amazing
right,
stuff.
right,
Um, but yeah, yeah, Bill is right. It's for that comic, it's going to cost you at least a couple hundred, and that's probably low, you know, because of the time involved and the skill of the person, you know,
yeah.
that's involved.
Yeah, I remember, back in the 90s when I was collecting, I would read articles on people actually. There weren't a lot of people in the restoration space. It was like just a
Right.
few companies um, back then doing it. And again, they would only work on like big books. So we're talking like,
Right.
it had to be several tens of thousands of dollars to
Yeah.
get that kind of service. But I'm just wondering what the landscape looks like now. I'm sure there are more people doing it, but um, curious to what the charges were if those if the fees were as high, probably higher than what they were in the 90s. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for like a comic like that, I mean, the restoration that she does or whoever does is not going to up the value to a degree that it's worth it. I mean, I don't want to speak monetarily. I mean, obviously there's nostalgia behind it and there's other kinds of factors involved than just monetary value. But, when you consider you could buy another one that's perhaps not in that condition, a little better condition for similar money, does it make sense? Probably not. Yeah.
great points. All right, well, Roger, thank you so much. This I had again, I had a blast,
Me too.
and
Me too.
it just was um, one of those things like you know I,
I'm
this was
very
great
glad you reached
content.
out to me, by the way. I'm very honored that you reached out to me and trusted me with this because not everybody would, I mean, that's
No, what got me to wanting you to do it is because I saw the work you were doing on your own books, and
mhm,
I was like, wow, that's a great job. It's like one thing like you see people like, oh, they claim they pressed it and they sent it into CGC and they got this, supposed grade bump and all this. And then
right.
you hear people who actually use it and complain, oh no, they ruined my book and all this. But um, I knew I could trust you with, because you were just going to be transparent about the results, whether they're good or bad. So I knew
Yeah.
it's not like you're going to sugarcoat what you do. So
Yeah.
I was appreciative of that.
At this point in my life, I got no reasons to do these things that,
Exactly.
if I didn't think I could improve it, I would have just said, "Hey, you know, I appreciate it, but I don't feel comfortable or I don't think I can do a good job." But when we started talking about, I mean, it was a process between the both of us, right? It was a dialogue. You initially had that Fantastic Four giant size, remember? And when we started talking about it, that didn't really make sense. I think it was a collaboration, and the fact that you had these comics in this condition, and it just happened to be things that I think I could have improved. It just was, it was just a convergence of events that led to those comics getting better. But I had a blast, honestly. It was so much fun. Um, as I was thinking of you, and I was like, all right, he told me not to do the thing with the tape, right? But I was like, sometimes you're like, okay, I don't want to disobey you, right? But I didn't want to just say, well, sorry, you're getting this back the way it is, because that would, to me, would be like I'm just throwing in the towel. I don't give up that easy. And I said, well, if it's safe, I know that he would want me to do it. And it was early in the morning, so I wasn't gonna like text you or nothing. So I was not gonna wake you up over there. But I'm glad everything worked out. I'm glad you're happy. And again, I really am honored that you trusted me with this, with your comics. Not everybody would do that. Um, and overall, I just think it was a great experience for both of us, and that's what we can come out of, the conclusion of this.
Exactly. And really I hope for people out there not too familiar with this process. I know I learned a lot in just my conversations with you, and
Mhm.
hopefully people can be inspired to get into it and improve their own books, because yeah, it's another part of the hobby I think all of us can really enjoy. And I know you get a kick out of it. So I'm just
I
glad
do.
that we were able to do this together. So thank you again, Roger.
Sure, man. Sure, man. You're certainly welcome. And enjoy. And if you find any other ones in the future, get them and never know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, we'll pick up some books and down the road we can do this again at some point.
Sure,
So,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. No problem. No
All right.
problem.
Have a great weekend and evening, my friend. And I guess I'll
Likewise.
catch up with you at some point. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything I can anytime I'm on with you is a good time.
All right. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll
All
see you in
right,
the next one.
Kyle, Bill, anybody who's
Yeah.
still awake at this hour.
Go to sleep.